Personal Growth Company. And today we're going to do Ask Me Anything. And the theme at COR for the month of February is compassion and forgiveness. These two aspects are a really important part of love, which is what February is supposed to be all about, right? About love. So I figured we might as well address two components that are really, really important aspects of any kind of love. And so I have a bunch of really good questions here. So let's start with the first one from Jody. Jody says, over the past 5 years, I've done a lot of personal growth work on preparing myself for a romantic partner. Everything from working with love coaches to self-loving and marrying myself. If you'd asked me, I'd say yes, I feel ready and available. But as I look back at the past 2 years of my relationships, including one I just ended earlier in January, they have mostly been with unavailable men, both emotionally and time-wise. I'm imagining there's some blind spot that I'm not aware of as to why I have consistently attracted unavailable men, and I'm curious if you have any suggestions of how to see it compassionately. This is a really great subject, and a big question, and a good question, and a good question to apply compassion to. So the first thing I want to say is that my heart goes out to you. Like all this work on yourself to prepare yourself for a romantic partner. That's awesome. And it's also been a long time. I hear that it's been 5 years. So the first thing I want to say, that deserves compassion. Like longing for something that much and not really receiving it the way that you want it, whatever that is hard. And particularly with something like a romantic partner that has such, such a matter of the heart. And then I also want to say, I know that there's a lot of talk about, like, if you're in the right space, if you have done your work, if you've looked at your blind spots, then you will receive this partner. And if you have the right thoughts and eat right and dream right and think right, then somehow this partner is going to come. And the opposite of that means, I love all these emojis. Sorry, I got a little distracted. Okay, so the opposite of that is, if you think wrongly, or you haven't done enough work, or you eat the wrong food, or you are just not, something's basically wrong with you, then you will not attract the right partner. So in my experience, that can be a real way of beating yourself up. We can use anything to beat ourselves up, and we're really good at that, most of us. So what I want to say to you, Jody, and any other woman or man who is looking for an available partner and is really longing for a relationship and is not finding it, please don't let that mean there's something wrong with you. And because in my experience, when I watch who's in relationship and who is not, it doesn't seem to be all about that. There's some people that have not done any work and they're in a great relationship with an available person, and there's people that have done a ton of work on themselves and they're not. So there's something else going on, and it doesn't correlate like that. It's kind of like when people, there's even like sometimes people get sick and then people say, well, it's because you have something that you need to work through, and it's almost like it's your fault if you get a disease, and so first of all, take that off you. It's not your fault, and it's not because you're wrong and you need to fix yourself, and then when you fix yourself, then you'll have this partner. I think it has so many components, one of them being something about your soul's path and what you're going through and what's right for you at this time. And so, first of all, to really have compassion. And in a way, you can just stop fixing yourself about this, you know? And the other point, and now I want to read this last piece that you wrote, which was really interesting to me. You wrote, the good news is that I have recognized these patterns and have a new agreement mantra with myself that I will only date men who are available, interested in me, and I am interested in them. So now we're getting somewhere. So even though we want to have compassion, the other aspect of the path is truth, right? So compassion and truth go hand in hand. If you only have compassion, you get too mushy and too kind of enabling. And if you only have truth, it's too harsh, yeah, and brutal sometimes. So the combination of truth and compassion is one of the core principles of COR, like we always are about both. So if the truth is, which I'm kind of reading between the lines here with you, that you have been available for unavailable men, and you're kind of, it's almost like that those have been the kind of men that you've been with, and you've been sexual with them, and you've been engaging with them, even though you knew they weren't available. Now that's something else, and I'm really happy about your resolution not to do that anymore. So I would say, and this is my personal opinion, and I know it's very unpopular these days, but that if you want a relationship, if you really want a committed relationship, don't be available to unavailable men. And you can pretty much smell it, or unavailable women for that matter, if you're a man listening to this. Like there's something you can tell if a person is looking for a real committed relationship, or if they just want to have sex and they just want to have fun with you. Yeah. Now, you can tell, and if you're not sure, you can ask. And I would say, protect yourself from that, just being available for sex and casual relating like that. If what you're looking for is a committed relationship, sometimes that means wait. Yeah, wait more time. See, what's wrong with actually just having a friendship with somebody until you get to know somebody better and know what their intentions are, because, and this is particularly for the women, if you give your body away, you will also give at least a piece of your heart, and that makes you unavailable for somebody who's actually available. I'm aware that what I'm saying right now is really unpopular and totally against the culture. But I have seen so many women suffer from this, so many people suffer from this, and taking a long time to recover from it, that I just want to make a stake here. I don't think that's the right English thing to say, but whatever one does with a stake, I just want to make a suggestion here that if you really want to be, available to someone, wait until you see if they're available. And so I really like your resolution, Jody. And again, that doesn't mean if you have been doing that and been with unavailable men or women, that doesn't mean beat yourself up now for it. It just means make a wiser choice from now on and just see what happens. Even if it's just like for a few months, just try that and see what happens if you are very clear, like kind of from the first date on, what you're about and what you want and who you want to attract. Yeah. I just want to tell you a story from the very beginning of, I think I was in my 20s or something. And I had I was a single mom with a 4-year-old, and I had a terrible relationship with somebody who really didn't like kids. And we ended up even living together, and it was just not working, and I realized I am not going to be able to be with a guy who doesn't like kids. That's just, or who doesn't know how to relate with them or something, So I made this vow to myself. I'm not going to be available for that. So the next guy, who later on turned out to be my husband, on the first date, like when we were out for dinner, he kind of just asked me, "Who are you?" I said, "Okay, I'm a 24-year-old woman with a son, and I'm a mom. And do you like that?" I mean, it was just like I just said it, like, because I was like, and he's like, "Whoa," and I'm like, "Yep. Well, how do you feel about that?" And he's like, "Oh, nice to meet you." And I'm like, "You know what? I just don't want to waste any time with getting all into you. And then I'm going to notice, I'm going to realize you don't like kids. So what am I going to do with my son? And I don't want to put him through this again." So it turned out he loved kids. So, and he was available, and we actually got married. But I'm just trying to say, maybe not that radically you got to do it, but it's like when you clear what you want and what you're looking for. I didn't care that this was a gorgeous guy that I was totally attracted to, and but I cared about, I didn't want my son's heart to get hurt again. I didn't want my heart to get hurt again with somebody who just wasn't compatible with where I was at. So I'm suggesting something like that to you. Just be really clear about what you want, and if it's not right, then you can, with compassion and love, just go separate ways. So that was a long answer to your question, but it's kind of something that's on my heart a lot, because I've seen so many people get hurt and then beat themselves up for it, which just goes into the cycle that they feel then, well, I better take a few crumbs, even if he just wants to sleep with me. It's better. Maybe he will fall in love with me afterwards. And if I just kind of be available long enough, that usually doesn't work out. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And let me see if I have any other questions here. So let me see. I have a few questions. Which one? So let me do Danny. Danny says, "How can I practice forgiveness with myself and others when it comes to my friendships? Specifically when it comes to expectations I set for what showing up as a friend is supposed to look like. How often we talk, how we connect, what I'm supposed to be doing on a regular basis, etc. Ultimately, the question boils down to, how do I open up to more intimate and real connections without putting so much pressure on myself or others to do something a certain way?" Great question. So it's really a question about expectations, right? Like what do I do with my expectations that I have and in friendships? And how can I be compassionate when these expectations are not met? I mean, when our expectations are met, is all good. The problem is when what happens when they don't get met. So again, the first compassionate approach with yourself is to see, so let's say, and I'm not sure, Danny, which way this goes, but I'm just going to go both ways. So first, you have expectations from someone, from a friend, and they don't fulfill this expectation. Let's say you wanted them to call you more or something, right? But they don't. So the first thing is just to recognize that this is hard for you. Like to take a moment and go, this hurts. Yeah. And the second thing I would recommend, if this is a good friend, is to communicate that with them in a compassionate way without making the other person wrong. That always works best, just to communicate. I have noticed, like, whatever, in the last month you haven't called me, and I was really looking forward to your call or something, and I noticed I'm disappointed, or I feel sad, or like whatever that is, or I feel angry, whatever the feeling is, and would you be willing to hear this communication? Like, actually it's better to even ask before that, would you be willing to hear communication about our friendship, even before you start? Like, it's always good to get the person's buy-in. Yeah. So And then if the person says yes, then how can you communicate this, in a way that makes it clear these are your feelings, these are your expectations, and usually a good friend would listen to you and would hopefully be compassionate towards you. If they're really harsh towards you, if you're expressing yourself in this self-responsible way, that is really a good thing to look at. Is this a real friendship I want to nurture? And then maybe you can make a request. Just telling the person what it was that you needed. Like you needed, to feel. Maybe you needed appreciation or intimacy or closeness or whatever that was. And would this person be willing to call you once a month or text you once a month or whatever it would be that you would want, So, and again, that makes you vulnerable because it lets you express your expectations. If it's the other way around, that you have high expectations of yourself as a friend and you don't fulfill them, and I know that one really well, then it's also, again, it's first of all to see this is hard for, like, let's say that would be me and I have these expectations. I'm just thinking, like, I would like to be a better godmother, for example, right? Like, I have godchildren that I would like to see much more often than I see them, but I'm so busy. And so when I have this conversation coming up in my mind, I would go, okay, this is hard. This is like, I have this desire and this expectation of myself and I'm not fulfilling it, and just to give myself compassion, first of all, and then secondly, seeing now, can I change something about the situation? Like, can I show up more? Because the worst thing you can do is beat yourself up for something and then not do anything about it. So it just keeps going. You just keep beating yourself up and nothing actually ever changes. Like, please don't do that ever to yourself. So is there something? Maybe I can't see my godson the next 2 months or something, but can I set something up for 2 months from now? Just to set it up, to put it in the place, and can I communicate something? Do I need to communicate something to this person that I feel like I have higher expectations? Like, actually, maybe, just to have a conversation often is so great. We keep so much in our head and try to work this out inside of ourselves. And often just to talk to the person makes everything better. So that's what I would recommend. Yeah, I hope that's helpful, Danny. Let me see if there's any more questions. Here's another question that I really liked, from someone anonymous. How can I be with another person's pain that I caused without spiraling into my own shame cycle? I want to be with this person and understand their pain. I want them to get how sorry I am that I hurt them without dying under the weight of the shame. That is a great question. And I'm sure everybody can relate. I'm sure that we've all done something that we're not proud of to someone. And this is a really tricky situation. So the ego, so when I've hurt somebody, the ego generally has two ways to go with that, unhealthy ways to go with that. One is to just not acknowledge that and go, I didn't hurt anybody. What are they talking about? Like, and be in denial about it. I think I talked about this at the last Facebook Live. That is the sort of inflated ego structure, Yeah, that just is like, I'm great, I'm good, it's all their fault. If they're hurting, what problem is that of mine? You know, like they're just too sensitive or whatever, you know, like it's like just not to acknowledge it. The other side is to acknowledge it and then spiral into shame and just go, I'm terrible. Just, you know, take out the whip and beat yourself, you know, and just, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person. Terrible. I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? They'll never forgive me. I'll never forgive myself. And you know, the really interesting part of that is, if you look at it, in both situations, it's all about me. So this person over there is in pain that I caused, and all I think about is really myself. Either how I didn't cause this, or I make up all these excuses why really I didn't cause it. Or the other part would be, it's all my fault, I'm a terrible person, and I make it all about me. And I spiral in this narcissistic thing that where I have no connection with my greater wisdom or any connection with the person, the other person, you know. So either way, shame is actually a really good way not to actually really feel the other person's pain, which is when something happens. Something, when I go and give myself the benefit of the doubt that I am a good person, I know who I am. I know I'm a good person. I know I have good intentions, and I did this thing that caused harm. It's not me who is like a harmful person or a terrible person. It's that my action was harm, caused pain. You know, my action caused harm. And sometimes it's small actions, sometimes it's big actions that cause harm, you know. And but I am good. Yeah, like there's a basic knowing of my intrinsic goodness. But this action was not good. It was harmful and it caused someone pain. And there's a willingness to acknowledge it and a willingness to actually feel the pain that we caused. That's when real forgiveness happens. To feel, you know, there's to feel, to kind of investigate what happened inside of me that brought this about, you know, like to really investigate with curiosity and compassion. And then also the second step, to actually put myself in the other person's shoes and feel their pain, like what they might be feeling, without drowning in it and without making it about me, which is a very, very, very difficult task, you know, especially if the other person is really angry. Yet it also really diffuses the anger if you tell the other person, you know, I'm sorry for what I did, and you must be, I'm envisioning you must be feeling like this, or I when I feel into that, I'm imagining you feeling really betrayed, or you're feeling sad, or you're feeling angry, and I want to hear about it. I'm here to listen to it, you know, to what your feelings are. Now that is the path in the middle between these two ego structures, right? It's like owning what we did, what we contributed, including really investigating, why did I do this and what was going on for me, you know, like that this happened, with curiosity and compassion, and then also allowing myself to feel the impact that that had on the other person, and to actually feel it, like to actually willing, I share in your pain. I want to share in the pain that I caused. Yeah, not as a masochistic act or something, but as an act of love, as an act of generosity, which means I got to come out of my self-absorption and my belief how terrible I am, you know, to a greater compassion that we both are good people, and I out of my unconsciousness, out of something that I'm investigating, that I'm curious about, that I want to look at. There's a reason why I did what I did, and I'm looking at this, right? Because I'd like to not repeat that again. But out of love for you, I'm engaging in your pain too. So that's a radically different approach. It's like, it takes a lot of maturity, but that's when real forgiveness happens. That's when you forgive yourself. And that's also when it's easier to ask for forgiveness from the other person. And there can be a real new level of intimacy when this happens. So that's what I would suggest. If any listener here has caused any harm to someone, please don't drown in beating yourself up, which is a very human tendency. And then please also don't just sweep over it, and investigate what happened. Yeah, so because you will see something was hurting inside of you that caused the hurt, and that something needs attention. And when you tend to that, real forgiveness and letting go and actual learning, deep learning between you and hopefully the other person can happen. More beautiful emoji. Sorry, guys. All right. Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm happy you relate to this question. Hi, Alex. All right. Let's see what else we've got here. Here, another question. Let's see. Maybe I'll do a different one. A parenting question, okay? This is from Stephen. How do I forgive and bring compassion to myself for not doing enough in the raising of my 24-year-old daughter, who is currently living with me, while not letting myself off the hook for the significant amount of parenting that is still needed, even though I wish I didn't need to? What is the balance between forgiving myself for mistakes made or shortcomings as a parent, yet also doing what needs to be done because of the consequences of these shortcomings? Another great question. So, yeah, there's the internal process of forgiveness, and this is similar to the question before about owning, and parenting is, oh boy, is that ever a journey of where we need forgiveness for ourselves. Nobody is a perfect parent, and we all make mistakes, and our shortcomings come out there as nowhere else. And I've had so many situations with my kids where afterwards, I wish I would have known then what I know now, and there was just no way to know that then. I had to make that mistake, or my children had to, in a certain sense, suffer from my shortcomings. And we all grew from that, right? So there is a first of all, again, it's about bringing compassion to yourself that you did the best you could with what you had available. If you look at that, that's always the case. And it wasn't that great always. And there were things that were missing, right, for our children. And then there is a way of, there's another step, right, that I didn't speak about last time with the last subject. Is like sometimes we have to repair things. There's actions that need to be taken. So I'm going to give you just a super simple example. If I stole my neighbor's bicycle or something, yeah, just to say I'm sorry is not it. I've got to give the bicycle back, and maybe I offered to, mow his lawn for the next 3 months or something. Like there's a kind of like, there is something that sometimes needs to be done to repair a rift or to repair something. And obviously with parenting, that's even much more acute, so if there's something that happened in the past that we now have to repair, we do it, without beating ourselves up. It's just a practical action that needs attention. Now, I don't know the situation here well enough to know exactly what needs to be done, and probably in a situation like this where the child is already that old, it would be really good to get outside help, to see what is my part and what is her part, because she is an adult. Yeah, so what is the part needed from my side as a parent, and what is the part needed? How does she now need to show up, no matter what I didn't do? Like she's now old enough to show up. Yeah. And that balance between what's her part now, because this can go on till you're 80, right? Like, because we all didn't get from our parents what we needed. So, and at some point we got to let that go and move and take responsibility. And that's, that's a tough thing to gauge. When is that? When is a person ready for that step? And some, lately what I'm noticing is that people are much more, seem much more immature and mature much later than even like when I was that age, so but somewhere there is a spot where even if I did not do so well as a parent, now they're kind of on their own. They got to deal with this, and we can go to therapy together and we can find solutions, but at some point it's also there. They're now got to step up into adulthood. Yeah. And I would get support with that. There's great family therapists and organizations that help families figure this out. And how do I bring compassion to myself in this challenging situation? Yeah, and I'm not in control of it, so you always deserve compassion. That would be my answer. No matter what the situation is, like, you bring compassion. It can be almost a daily practice, because just to be a human being deserves compassion, right? And compassion and then action don't exclude each other. There can be a self-compassion practice, and then there can also be action. Actually, often they go hand in hand. Yeah. Love this question. Yes, Alex, I'm just reading your comment. And yeah, this just brings me to that the journey of parenting is just such a tough one. to know, when to be strict, when to be fluid, when to be assertive, when to be compassionate, like when to be disciplinary, when to let them off the hook. And God, is that difficult. So just to be a parent, period, deserves compassion. And to be a child of somebody also deserves compassion. Like the daughter in this case also deserves compassion. Yeah, it's like, it makes compassion doesn't keep us from making action steps. It just makes the action step, it creates more spaciousness and more love and more, there's just something, if both parties involved give each other compassion, themselves and each other, that makes things, that open new horizons up. There's almost like more wisdom is available when we are compassionate, because we don't have the whip out and the judgment, and it's more like we're just looking in this situation, what is the wisest thing to do. And it's always good to get counsel for that, especially when it's been going on for a while from any outside situation. So let's see, what time is it now? I think we're getting to an end, unless there's something. I'm going to do one more question from Frida, because it's kind of also a cool question, a quick answer to this. My question would be, sometimes I encounter folks who rub me the wrong way, irritate me, or repel me. Normally, I just want to avoid them or not deal with them. But how can I bring compassion to myself for feeling this way, and compassion to these folks who I encounter that I have a hard time being with? Great question also. And very, very human again. There's always people that rub us the wrong way. And there's people that we even go like, ugh, so just that you even have the intention, Frida, to apply compassion to yourself and to the other person is already a great step. Like, you didn't choose for this. This is something really important to remember. We don't choose not to be compassionate, or that somebody irks us or annoys us, or it just instinctively happens, right? Like, we go somewhere in a group, in a workshop, on the street, in a grocery store, and all of a sudden we see somebody and there's a kind of, ugh, like there's something that rubs us the wrong way about this person, or they open their mouth and what they say, we don't like what they say or whatever, you know. So the first thing to know is like, we didn't choose this. It just arose out of somewhere, this reaction, this response. So the first thing is to know that we basically choose none of this. Like, we wake up in the morning, we don't choose to wake up at 3 a.m. and beat ourselves up. Yeah, it just happens. So that always deserves compassion. And yes, the other person also deserves compassion. The person that, like, because if you really look at it, there's a reason this person just triggers something in you. You know, if you were all open, enlightened, and wise, and in your healthy self completely, this probably wouldn't be happening. There's something about this person that reminds you of something in you. That's why, you know, or in my case, it reminds me of something in me that is unresolved in my humanity, that I don't like, that I have a hard time with. So sending both parties compassion is a really good idea. And you know, there's a beautiful little practice where you can just say inside of yourself, look at that person and say, may you be free from suffering. You know, just wishing them well, like, may you be happy. Just a simple, you know, kind of Buddhist saying of wishing someone well, even if they are your, so to speak, enemy, you know, your difficult person, just wishing them with as much sincerity as you can muster in that moment, you know, from your greater wisdom self. May you be happy, may you be free from suffering. Just does something. It already brings a little distance. I sometimes imagine a person as a baby just having come here. That also does something to take the charge off, you know. And this little saying, you know, or another good one is like, say I judge that the person is really annoying, right? So then I would say, this person is really annoying, just like me. Or this person is they're so needy. And I go, just like me. That takes something, right? That takes some charge off. Oh, just like me. Am I annoying sometimes? Yep. I certainly annoy my husband. Am I needy sometimes? Yep. Sometimes I'm so needy, like I can't stand it, you know. So whatever I'm judging this other person for, I just put this little just like me. It puts something in the you know, in the usual way of thinking in the brain. It just puts a little stop in it. And so these two little practices, just to wish someone well. And I love what Alex says here. Alex says, this is my daily meditation for myself and others. May you feel peace. May you feel love. May you feel safe. Yeah, how sweet is that? To say that to this person that I'm annoyed with. Doesn't mean I need to love them. Doesn't mean I need to like them. Doesn't mean I need to spend time with them, but I wish them well. How's that? And if that doesn't work, try the just like me practice. It's great. Really annoying. Another ego buster, because basically everything I judge in somebody else, I have to. And if I really am totally annoyed with somebody, there's something unresolved in my humanity. Yes, Chrissy, I love that too. That is probably a good idea to look at. What is that? What is this that I'm not facing here, that this person kind of rubs my nose in? Yeah, so wonderful. The good old ego buster. Gotta love it. That's what we're all about at COR, is ego busting, really. Like, because the ego keeps us so small and so contained and so narrow-minded, and away from a broader compassion and a broader forgiveness and a broader love that is so available when there's some relaxation around our ego fixations. Yeah, when there's some kind of compassion, some relaxation, some disidentification from what we usually hold so true. Yeah. So that's it, lovies. Thank you for being on this Facebook Live, and I hope this was helpful. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.